The pressure is never greater on the world's best footballers to perform than at the World Cup, where the hopes of an entire nation and beyond rest on them. Some rise to the occasion, but some, through their own anonymity or their teammates' inability to find them, fail to impress as they should. Individualistic performances were not in vogue this year, as the top 4 finishing teams all performed as collectives rather than as superstars and ensembles. With that in mind, let's take a look at the list of players who didn't meet the levels expected of them this year, with the 10 most underwhelming players of the 2018 World Cup. Number 10. Mohamed Salah. Poor Mohamed Salah. With his meteoric rise to the pinnacle of football this year, everyone was expecting to see the sport's favourite nice guy go toe-to-toe with the other superstars in the World Cup. But his tournament was severely hampered by the shoulder injury inflicted in the Champions League final, and in losing the first 2 games before he was fully fit, the Egyptian side he'd lifted to its first World Cup in almost 30 years was out of the tournament before it had even begun. He may have scored a goal against Saudi Arabia and a penalty against Russia, but both games he played in ended in losses. Number 9. Luis Suarez. Luis Suarez delivered a sumptuous ball for Edinson Cavani to head home against Portugal in the round of 16, but aside from that, the nibblier half of Uruguay's front 2 didn't do a whole lot this tournament. He did score a cheeky free kick against Russia and a tap-in against Saudi Arabia, but those teams should have been easy fodder for Barcelona's starting striker. His anonymous match against Egypt was a better summary of his World Cup, as he struggled to find the ball and was significantly outshone by his PSG playing partner Cavani. He managed to resist biting anyone this time, but that's about the only personal success he can really count. Number 8. Sami Khedira. If you were to unfairly pick one of Germany's players to hold up as an example of why they didn't do well, Sami Khedira would probably be it. At 31 years old, it was a lot to ask him to bring the level of dynamism and vision to the centre of midfield the German team desperately needed, but his staggering lack of pace was exploited time and again as Mexico ran them ragged in their opening game. He even admitted he'd had a terrible time at the tournament, nowhere near the standard of his superb club season, saying his national team performance had been, quote, inexplicable. Number 7. Javier Mascherano. Half a season playing in China has hit Javier Mascherano hard. The former Barcelona centre-back looked miles off the pace for the World Cup. While he was no doubt a, shall we say, defining influence in the dressing room, rumoured to have helped usurp the coach with Messi and gotten into a fight with a teammate leaving him with a black eye, he and his knackered legs were retired from the national team for good by France and their new generation of speedy stars. He may not have left the tournament with the trophy, but he did make a notable contribution to the country's record collection by picking up an unequalled 7th World Cup yellow card. Number 6. Gerard Piqué. Spain's undoing at this World Cup was their utter lack of inventiveness going forward, but it was Gerard Piqué who stood out for all the wrong reasons at the back. He was exceedingly lucky not to be penalised for a 2-footed tackle early in Spain's final, crucial group game against Morocco. He gifted Russia a penalty in the round of 16, which proved to be the goal they needed to see the game through to penalties, and he was part of a defence routinely ripped apart by Cristiano Ronaldo in the opening game draw with Portugal. A poor World Cup for the centre-back, especially considering it was likely his final one. Number 5. Jerome Boateng. Speaking of poor centre-backs, really any of Germany's players could make this list, but Jerome Boateng stood out against Sweden for being particularly bad. Once heralded as one of the world's best players in his position, Boateng seemed to forget every ounce of footballing ability he had when the two sides met in the group. Germany somehow managed to squeeze a win out of the game, but not before Boateng had gotten himself 2 yellow cards for some abysmal tackles. He's always had a serious whiff in him, but never before has it happened on such a prominent national team stage. Number 4. Robert Lewandowski. Robert Lewandowski has always been a sublime finisher rather than the kind of striker to drop deep and make plays happen, so it was no surprise that when he found himself needing to go into midfield to receive the ball that he was pretty ineffectual. Poland's all-time leading scorer bagged 16 goals in qualifying and helped his national side enter their group as the seeded team, but he failed to make it happen when it really counted. A player of his position can't be entirely blamed for a poor performance due to the sheer lack of service he received, but the ability to take the game by the scruff of the neck is what separates the greats from the legends. Number 3. Thomas Muller. Where was Thomas Muller this World Cup? You'd absolutely be excused for asking. Dropped for the final group game against South Korea and eventually brought on as a substitute, as ineffectual as he'd been in his first 2 games, Thomas Muller failed to make a single goal or assist at this World Cup. Winner of the Golden Boot in 2010 and one of the players of the tournament in 2014, the World Cup's highest scoring active player entered this World Cup one of Germany's most identifiable stars, and then left it ignominiously. I guess he'll just have to walk the league with Bayern again next year. Number 2, Lionel Messi. Argentina really asked it all of Lionel Messi this tournament, as few of their other players truly showed up. In fact, if rumours are to be believed, even the manager was eventually relieved of his job after a dressing room coup headed by Messi and Mascherano. But even with the team he dictated and the tactics he chose, Messi still couldn't find enough of the ball to have a meaningful impact for Argentina. He had one classic Messi moment, a bright spark against Nigeria to score the first goal, but what few contributions he did offer were almost immediately counteracted by Argentina's porous defence. This was supposed to be Messi's World Cup after coming so close last time, but he barely made it out of the group. Number 1, Neymar. If anything, Neymar could be accused of trying to do too much. The Brazilian attack was routinely blunted by his need to be at the centre of every move, and time again he hogged the ball, despite still recovering form after his season-ending foot injury. That was, of course, when he was on his feet, which he wasn't often. He was on the receiving end of the most fouls of any player at the tournament, but the amount of time he spent rolling on the floor was just laughable. It was supposed to be his tournament to shine, but instead he's finished as a laughingstock, with kids around the world emulating his histrionics rather than his heroics. Who do you think was the biggest footballing flop at this World Cup? Have we missed any underperforming stars out? Let us know what you think and who deserves to be taken to task in the comments below. And while you're there, let us know what other videos you'd like to see. Give this one a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Lloyd Mallison, and I'll see you soon.